Well, hello everybody, and welcome once again to the Live Wire on Inside UNC Charlotte. We're glad that you're with us and have us on your screens again for another great conversation. I say great because I know it's going to be great because of our guest and the topic at hand. I should note that one of the things we try to do as we kind of go through the mainstays of the university here at UNC Charlotte is just to refamiliarize ourselves with a lot of the things that are going on around us that we often don't take the time to think about. And it was interesting because a few weeks ago in previewing the International Festival, we made a lot of note about the fact that it is about next year to celebrate its 40th anniversary, which makes it one of the longest running cultural events, certainly on campus, but also here in Charlotte. But today we're going to be talking about an organization that has been part of the life of the campus here at UNC Charlotte for 50 years, and it's the Cooperative Christian Ministry, which I gather over its history has maybe had some slight alterations of that name, different versions. But our guest formally is the Reverend Steve Cheyney, and from here on we'll call him Steve. But thank you for being with us, and let's dive right in and hear a little bit about what the Cooperative Christian Ministry is and what it is here at UNC Charlotte, and then talking about its relationship with some of the other campuses here in the Charlotte region.
Sure.
Start with hello and thank you for being with us. But
thanks for having me. It's
Sure.
a pleasure to be here.
Sure.
Yeah, so Cooperative Christian Ministry is an ecumenical ministry. It's jointly sponsored by the Episcopal, Lutheran, United Methodist, and Presbyterian denominations. So these denominations agreed some time back to nationally to have a cooperative effort here at UNC Charlotte. And we're celebrating, as you said, our 50th anniversary. It started in 1964.
How long has it been that cooperative group? In other words, here at UNC Charlotte, 50 years ago, it started as what?
So 50 years ago, Miss Bonnie Cohn invited Loy Witherspoon to start the religious studies program in the philosophy department. They've gone through some different names as well. But she also asked him to serve as an unofficial campus chaplain. Loy is, in addition to having a PhD in New Testament from Boston University, is also an ordained Methodist minister. And so it was natural for him to reach out to the Methodist Church. But Loy, being ecumenical by heart, reached out to other denominations as well. So in '64, the ministry officially started as the Methodist Presbyterian Campus Ministry at UNC Charlotte.
That's incredible. I mean, just to think about that amount of time and the enduring nature of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about Dr. Loy Witherspoon in a few minutes, just because that connection to the roots of this institution is amazing and definitely something to be celebrated. And in fact, you're going to be celebrating it. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. And then also a program note for our viewers. We are talking about today the Cooperative Christian Ministry, which includes the 4 denominations that Steve just mentioned. And we're going to talk among ourselves today in a broader ecumenical sense as well. But lest you be concerned that maybe your denomination or your faith wasn't represented in that first grouping, we'll probably touch on it today, and then we'll certainly look at doing more programs here on the Live Wire that talk about hopefully all of the faiths or all of the major faiths that are represented on campus, because it really is something that I think many of us consider to be an important part of a university, that you have an atmosphere where students can express their faith and learn about other faiths. And tell me a little bit about your take on the typical undergraduate in the year 2014. And they come to a university. Is it the classic case of, well, I'm going to question everything about my life, and if I've been brought up in a faith, it's my time to question it, it's my time to set it aside, it's my time to explore other options, or it's my time to deepen my commitment and growth in that faith? Where are we with what a typical college brings to campus, what they gather at campus, and what they take away from campus when it comes to their faith?
Well, I would say that many do question, come into the college experience with a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
I would gather that there's probably about 3 types of students that I would see in that realm. That would be the student who's just totally sure of themselves, and so they've had a strong faith background.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's overconfidence or if they're masking something. Sometimes it's a very good, positive experience they have, and sometimes it's not so. It might be a little negative. And then there are students who are absolutely, totally unsure of their faith, and they're open about that. They doubt, they question, and they have no problem with that. And I explore that, and I'm open and available. And we offer safe campus ministry to help students with that. And then I would say the majority of students just totally have no clue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions out there, and this is a time to explore and to find out where they are and who they are.
How would you describe, from your perspective, the religious climate at this public, state-funded university?
The religious climate, it changes from year to year. There's certainly a lot of groups on campus who are official and who've been officially recognized by the Student Affairs Division, who go through a process of recognition. I don't know the number. There's probably 30 or so, maybe more. And then there's a lot of sort of what I would say is underground ministry going on that don't go through the proper circles, and so that can affect the climate of what it's like here. We're in the South, so Christianity is by far the biggest influence on this campus from a religious standpoint. But it's not always it's not always positive. It can be negative, and we experience a lot of speech at the Free Zone, at the Bell Tower, and oftentimes that's very negative. And being a research university, we have a lot of professors here who we have professors here who are very open about being an atheist, or we have a very multicultural sense as well from different faith groups. And then we have professors and faculty here who just don't want to speak of it at all because it might be too political. So the climate here is just, there's nothing necessarily stable about it religiously, but it's not unlike any other college campus.
Yeah, and it's not unlike the world.
Exactly.
Which is kind of the point. Right. But, okay, so the 4 denominations that you mentioned that are part of the Cooperative Christian Ministry did not include, among some of the larger Christian denominations, Baptists, Catholics. They're represented on campus too, to some degree, I suppose.
They absolutely are. Yes, they have strong campus ministries, and we work well together. The Baptist campus ministry, I don't know their official date, but they started shortly after. This was Cooperative Christian Ministry was the first campus ministry, and we've withstood the test of time. But the Baptists have been here certainly a very long time, and they have a strong presence and have a lot of congregations in the area who do a lot to support the students. And the Catholic campus ministry as well is a strong community with a lot of parishes around who also help with student ministry. And they have all 3 of those ministries, Cooperative Christian Ministry, the Baptist, and the Catholics, have been here since the 60s for sure.
What about the Jewish community and the Muslim community here on campus?
So interestingly, the Jewish community here is mostly represented by Hillel, which is a campus ministry that, in my assumption, is very strong, and I know they have good leadership, and they're very active on campus. And the Muslim Student Association is a student-led group. To my knowledge, there is no official imam on campus, and so that puts them in a unique position. These are students who are so convicted and compelled by their own faith to gather naturally without some type of hierarchy saying, hey, we have an opportunity for you. Yeah. And to some extent, the Jewish community as well, although they are beginning to explore sort of official representation.
Well, I wish we had room on this set to bring everybody in and have that
conversation.
Would be great.
Yeah.
But then again, I think, well, we have a bigger studio down the hall, and what we ought to do is get everybody together and just kind of have a video colloquium on the state of faith on the university campus. I think that'd be a great thing to do, and certainly we'll make a point in this academic year to get representatives of those other organized faith-based groups here on this set to talk to our immediate UNC Charlotte community. But tell me a little bit about what, if anything, do you and the other organized groups do to reach out and get together?
Being a campus of 28,000 students, we're really busy.
Yeah.
And we're so consumed with the activities that we have. So our outreach collectively is not where it should be.
Okay.
I know that at least the campus ministries that I've mentioned are very tolerant toward one another, and there are times that we do joint efforts and joint activities. It's not enough. We need to do more. Luckily, we are very fortunate to have the RSL, which is the Religious and Spiritual Life Department here, and that's organized by the university, and it helps us together. That's something that I personally couldn't ever dream of doing, and so we're very fortunate to have such a department community sort of designed under the umbrella of the multicultural affairs to put us together and let us talk about things, and I'm very thankful for that. We should be as a university.
Good. We're speaking with the Reverend Steve Cheyney, who oversees the Cooperative Christian Ministry here on the campus of UNC Charlotte, and that particular group comprises 4 denominations represented in one group. Tell me a little bit about you and your background. Where are you from, and what is your particular religious education training?
Yeah, so I was born in Virginia, grew up in Wilmington at the beach, and went to school, did my undergraduate studies at Western Carolina. I was a criminal justice major, and then about that time I felt a call into the ministry and did my graduate studies at Duke. And there I was, after Duke, I was ordained as a United Methodist minister. The campus ministry, being ecumenical, it's a very interesting call process. In the Methodist Church, you're just sent. The bishop sends you to where you're supposed to go. And this being an ecumenical endeavor, the denominations had to work together to call.
So it's not just the case where the Methodists say it's your turn, go get it, get somebody and bring them in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So across the United States, how many universities have what we have, is in terms of organizations like the Cooperative Christian Ministry, or on their campus, the number or the degree to which we have organized faith organizations here on campus, whether from the outside or student-based? And maybe that gets back to that question of what's the climate like here on this campus. But how do we stack up with other campuses across the country?
Well, because we're an urban school, we have probably a higher concentration of religious involvement, just because the community can support that, for good or for worse. But at probably most every college across the country, there's some type of active campus ministry. Within our 4 denominations, the context of our denominations, the Methodists are at 700 college campuses. The Presbyterians are at 500 college campuses, and so are the Lutherans and Episcopalians, just right up there around 500. And then the ecumenical effort of say just a Christian ecumenical effort, there's probably about 50 or 100 that are partnered in the United States, and that's a growing trend to do work ecumenically.
Let's take a look at the web real quickly. When we go to campus-ministry.org, and we see this array that includes Niner United, Wildcats United at Johnson and Wales, Campus Ministry Central at Central Piedmont Community College, and the Accelerated Ministry Project. All of this is your responsibility, is that right?
That is true.
So
yes.
What does that mean? And I'll click on Niner United so we can get into that as well. But you in your role oversee what's going on all of those campuses and all those projects then.
That's right. So Niner United is our campus ministry here at UNC Charlotte. It's our flagship ministry. This is the one that we're celebrating 50 years of ministry. And Niner United is, in many ways, it's like a typical campus ministry, but if you're not familiar with what campus ministry is and does, it's much like a church. We offer worship opportunities for service and fellowship. opportunities for students to have leadership and.
Is there an opportunity for a trip to Jamaica too?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gathering. I'm just putting two and two together here. But.
Right. So the campus ministry often does mission trips, and we have partnerships in Mexico and Haiti and Jamaica, Puerto Rico. This year we're sending students domestically to San Francisco during spring break.
Great. All right. So you have an extended flock then on all of these campuses, and as you said, UNC Charlotte is the largest.
It's the largest, and it is it's the one that's certainly been here the longest.
And if folks wanted to dig a little deeper, here on our campus, we do have a Facebook presence for Niner United, which is what we're talking about. And this would give somebody a little bit more of an idea of what all you're up to and images of the activities that you're doing. Let's go back and talk about the work, the founding of what has become your organization today, the groundwork laid by Loy Witherspoon. And we should note, as starting this conversation up here on the screen, that on October 7th, in Uptown Charlotte at St. Peter's Episcopal, there will be a celebration not only of 50 years of campus ministry here, but of the work of Dr. Witherspoon to essentially make it all happen all the way back in 1964. That was a long time ago. Loy Witherspoon, I think most people, even if you're new to the campus here, you quickly start to hear the stories. You see his name on a residence hall. You see his name in a lot of places. Just Google Loy Witherspoon, UNC Charlotte, and I think you'll see the point. I did that today as an experiment. But for those who maybe aren't familiar, we're talking about the person who might be the best person who's still with us, who is a connection to our university's founder, Dr. Bonnie Cohn, for instance, too. But Loy Witherspoon, tell us again the story and his founding of the religious studies program here, and et cetera, all the things he's done over the years.
Yeah, so close to 1964, Miss Bonnie Cohn, the founder of the university, she wanted a religious life program, and she wanted a religious department, and she wanted a philosophy department, and she actively sought Dr. Witherspoon to come to campus. He was highly recruited, and she convinced him to come here, and everybody fell in love with him. Beloved man who has left a huge legacy. He is not only responsible for this campus ministry, that's probably the thing that most people don't know about, but we have a incredible, superlative religious studies program, and he's the founder of it. And Dr. Witherspoon is the reason, part of the reason why there are so many benefactors to this university. He's just been behind the scenes working every day since he's been here, since that time.
That's pretty remarkable if you think about it, that an institution. Clearly, we know the story, UNC Charlotte and its origins as a post-World War II place for returning veterans to get their degrees, and over the next couple decades, or to start on their degrees, and over the next couple decades, grew into what in the mid-60s became UNC Charlotte, a full-fledged university and member of the UNC system. But what do you suppose Bonnie Cohn was thinking when she said, in her vision, and to bring in Loy Witherspoon, one of the big chunks of our foundation is going to be this guy in religious studies at the newest public university in what was going to become a great state public university system? That's not necessarily what folks would think of first, is it?
No, not at all. Yeah, she was an active member of Myers Park Baptist Church, and so faith was really important in her life. And I think that it's fair to say that she wanted someone who she could trust, and who whose students and faculty and staff could trust. And she thought of nowhere else to look but the church. In her mind, she probably figured that there were two institutions in the world that sought the truth, and that was the church and the university. And so it makes sense to me why she recruited Dr. Witherspoon.
Is your job tougher these days? And this is a rhetorical question because I'm sure it is, but when we look at what's going on in the world around us and then in American culture, where we become so divided, and so often it's religion and issues of faith, that rather than serving to unite us here at home, here in our country, and around the world, are at the heart of what's dividing us and are at the heart of what's making us kill each other. Now, historically, that's pretty much been the story of humankind. But I would assume that somewhere in your mind and in your heart, you might have entertained hopes at one time that things were going to get a lot better in your lifetime, and you'd be part of that. Are they getting better in your lifetime, and you're a part of it, or do the challenges continue to mount, and you're turning students out into the world, trying to make them prepared to deal with the world? But again, getting back to that question, what is it like these days to do what you're doing?
It's certainly an interesting environment, but I don't know if it's all that different than how it was 50 years ago or even 100 years ago. So much of my time and so much of a campus minister's time is just dealing with the individual student who has some type of personal need, and that hasn't changed over time. We all need a sense of belonging and to feel loved and to fit in, and then think about this age group as if you're thinking of traditional age students, 18 to 22 or maybe 24. What do you do with your life? You know, and so that's not all that different, I think, than it was when I was in school and when my parents were in school. And I would like to think that it might be different, and there's plenty of people who will sell you a book and say the world's different, but when you think about it, we all have similar needs.
So what does the next 50 years for campus ministry here at UNC Charlotte hold, if you had the ability to map that future? And I know, given what I know you believe in, you have nothing to do with that. But then again, what would be your best guess if you were to put yourself in that position? Where are things going to go as far as the role of faith and all faiths and all religions and all beliefs at a university? Is it going to become more important for the reasons you just laid out? You're talking to young people at a pivotal time at their lives, but you're also coupling it with preparing them to go into a world that is, increasingly divided. It seems like your work's cut out for you, and it's going to be more important. But are there any forces that would just assume that you go away, and are those going to become stronger over the years, or what do you predict, if you're in the prediction game?
Sure. Well, there's all types of forces that would hope that we go away, and probably the biggest force is apathy. The church, the Protestant church as we know, is in decline, and that certainly affects campus ministry. We are funded by these churches and not by the university. Separation of church and state, and that's the way it ought to be. And so as they decline, as they struggle, it hurts us and our ability to reach out. I think that I would love to see in 50 years a campus ministry culture at UNC Charlotte that is all about justice and reconciliation, tolerance, openness, where people can gather together safely without judgment, and know that they're part of a world that's bigger than them, but they can still be a transformative agent, that they can they matter. And that this phase of their life, as they're continuing their education, is super important for them.
If folks want to know more about your work, obviously they can go to the website, but maybe it would be a great idea for members of our university community, whether they are people of faith or not, or whether they are people of faiths other than Protestant Christian faith, maybe to come out to this event on October 7th and honor Loy Witherspoon and honor 50 years of the ministry of the Cooperative Christian Ministry here on this campus. And If you were to speak for Loy Witherspoon, I would imagine that you would say all are welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to have everybody. And if you're at the website, there is an RSVP, but it's just encouraged. It's not mandatory.
Okay.
We would love to have everybody who's interested in coming to show up.
Okay, and they can look for this on the website at campus-ministry.org, right?
Yes.
And then look for this invitation to this event on October 7th. For so many reasons, and one of the main reasons, regardless of your faith or perhaps your lack of faith altogether, is that Loy Witherspoon is such a huge part of our story as an institution, and I think everybody ought to take the time to appreciate him and get to know him and his story a little bit more, because it's pivotal, and it's great to have him around and know that we have that kind of contact still with somebody who made this place what it is. And in the coming years, we're going to have some anniversary after anniversary. I think your organization is leading the way, but UNC Charlotte is going to be celebrating 50 years as a university, and very soon 70 years as an institution. So I think it's very interesting that the two entities grew up together and are hand in hand. And we will make a point on this program to bring in the folks who represent the other faith organizations on campus, because it's great work that you're doing, and great work that you're doing to round out in many important ways the experience that our students have here at UNC Charlotte. So we want to thank Steve Cheyney for coming in and representing the Cooperative Christian Ministry here at UNC Charlotte, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again, and I think we'll explore that idea of maybe having a larger roundtable discussion about the state of faith, and include as many of those who are organized here on campus, and include voices of those who say there's no room for discussions of faith at a public university, but bring it all together and just talk about what the issues are. So we'll look forward to that, but in the meantime, I want to thank you for being with us, and we will look forward to seeing you on October 7th, the evening of October 7th at St. Peter's Episcopal Church, and your celebration. So
thank you. Thanks
for being with us, and we'll look forward to more. Thank you all for putting us on your screens again for another edition of the Live Wire here on Inside UNC Charlotte, and more to come next week. Keep watching, and we'll be with you again soon. Thanks.